Well, hello and welcome to Good Deeds Real Estate with Mission, our podcast. I haven't been here in a while, so thanks for having me back, Bill.
I just want to let you know I killed it last week.
Every week, right? And let me introduce you.
I was
Bill
everybody.
Weidecker.
I was everything.
Bill Weidecker, my partner. Fine Homes Group, Keller Williams. A couple of PSAs before we begin. 'Tis the season. So the first one is that we have our KW Charities annual raffle, auction, fun party at the Derryfield Country Club on October 22nd from 5 to 9. And tickets are still available. And it's really a wonderful evening, and all of the proceeds go to the 501c3 that helps local charities who are youth-based, serving children in the greater Manchester, southern New Hampshire area. So it's a lot of fun, and KW Charities way up over $1 million having given back.
I think they went over the $1 million mark
2 years ago.
A handful. It was like post-pandemic, but barely.
Yep.
I think it was 2021. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first thing. We're doing this in chronological order.
Okay.
And then for the last several years, we have fed 200 families through the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester. And we give them this big, huge storage tubs filled with everything they need for Thanksgiving dinner, including fresh produce. And it's really a wonderful thing, and turkeys. And so 200 families again this year we will feed. And so if anyone's interested in finding out how they can donate food or come and help us load those totes on Sunday. What date is that? The 24th of November. We would love to have you join us. On the 23rd is the similar thing in Boston, which our team, the Fine Homes Group, started. It's our third year now. We've been feeding 50 families through Project Hope, and this year we have pledged to do 100 families. So we're very, very excited about that. And lastly, our team, Fine Homes Group, has our annual Client and Friend Appreciation Party at Chunky's Cinema Pub in Manchester. We traditionally show Elf, and I think this year we've decided to show a second movie, everybody's family favorite, Die Hard.
It is a Christmas movie. It is.
I know it is.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
I get it, different kind of family. Anyway, so that's Sunday afternoon, the 24th. And so be in touch with us if you'd like to join those festivities. You go home with a pie for Thanksgiving. Okay, so now let's get to the material everyone's here for, which is, and what you love, your favorite thing every month, numbers.
I didn't always start out as a big fan of math. Anybody that remembers me from high school, I wasn't into it, but I've become better at it. And so the New Hampshire numbers for the state of New Hampshire, but the real estate numbers for the state of New Hampshire have just been updated through September. And so a few telling things. And number one is the volume of home sales has picked up a bit for September. That's good news. We are up 5.2% over last year. Now, in part, I think that's because there's more inventory. There's more listings.
That'll do it.
Well, there's more to sell.
That's right.
And so the year-to-date number is 3% up, but when you look at September, it's up over 5%. So I do think that'll tick up a little bit as we get towards the end of the year. Again, good news. Pricing, however, there's something to be aware of, and that is that we see a slowdown in appreciation. Hear this. It does not mean that prices are going backwards or have stopped appreciating. They're slowing down. For the month of September, they were up 6.5% over last year's September numbers. The year-to-date numbers are just under 10. So I expect that number will go from 9.8 to somewhere in the 8s by the end of the year. Keep in mind, they were as high as 17% a few years ago. So that kind of double-digit inflation and appreciation is not sustainable in the real estate business, especially with salaries increasing 3 or 4%. Sooner or later, affordability becomes a real big problem. So home sales have ticked up. I think that's in part because interest rates have moderated some. But I will say this also, so has the month's supply. Ever so slightly. We were 2 months of supply last year. This year, 2.4 months supply. So that's a 20% increase. Yes, it's only half a month, but we are seeing more inventory come on and staying on. I just believe this is that pricing gets to a point where it can no longer continue to go up at the rates that it's been going up at. And keep in mind, with inflation being somewhere around 2.5 or 3%, when we get to a point where the market, the real estate market, starts seeing appreciation at that same level, it really is essentially a flat market. If things are going up 2 to 3% a year, it's flat. So I expect that 2025 we're going to see a moderation in prices again, and we may get to mid fives in terms of appreciation, which I think is healthy.
Yep. And I mean, overall, if you look at this sort of long term, four is the average, right? If you just look at the curve,
Yeah,
it's 4% a year.
yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of price reductions, aren't we?
It's the most we've seen since 2019. So as of this morning, there were 521 price adjustments in Hillsborough, Rockingham, and Merrimack County. And that number was in the, about a year ago, was in the low to mid 300s, and now we're at 520. And we were seeing another interesting statistic. In 2022, 91% of the listings that were coming on the market were selling. The listing sold to listings taken ratio was 91.1%. Today, year to date through 2024, we're at 74.5%.
Big difference.
Big difference, which means, picking any price as a property owner and getting bailed out by a rapidly appreciating market is no longer the case. And we are starting to see some buyer pushback.
Yep. Lots of food for thought, lots of numbers.
Well, the real estate market is just that. And so when a property owner comes to us and says, I want to put my home on the market, when we talk to them about what other properties are selling for or other properties are on the market for, they never say, okay, all that information seems important. Let me ask less. You can see how that doesn't go together. There's always an ambition to say, all right, can I push the envelope? And while I think that's, still a possibility, you've got to be it's the razor's edge, Diane. You got to have really good advice from your counselor. And that's, in my opinion, that's what we do. That's what we bring to the table.
Agree. And the envelope will push itself. I mean, basically, asking more doesn't get you more necessarily, right? And so sometimes by being at a strategic pricing point, the demand is so increased that the price just increases.
Yeah, and we see, it's interesting because when we both started in the real estate business, this idea of asking for, but back then things were $69,900 or $75,900, when $100 might have meant some sort of significant difference. Today, it's a little perilous by asking for, you see properties priced at $999,900. And what does that really get you?
Gets you fewer eyes on the listing because people look in brackets. We've discussed this, so I'm just going to break right into it because I love it. But pricing, we call it pricing on the bridge. People look from a lower number to higher, a floor to a ceiling. Somebody else is looking from a floor to a ceiling. When one person's ceiling is another person's floor, that's what we call the bridge. And you're really doubling the traffic at least. What's interesting is I did a little query in Manchester from 500 to 600,000. This is a couple weeks ago. There were 7 properties on the market. When I went down just to 495, I added that 5,000 from 495 to 500. It doubled. There were 7 properties sitting in that little 495 to 499,999 bracket. So it doubled the inventory. And when agents, there are agents who price there because they think it sounds like a better value. It sounds like a better value to half the people who are looking, right? The people, it does not appear on someone's radar screen. Interestingly enough, when agents set searches up for their buyers, I'm just going to say that I think that most agents are using the bracket of 5 to 6 for their buyer.
Sure.
And still it's still pricing things at $499, $999, or $495.5, and it's very interesting that that people aren't strategic. Agents aren't strategic often about their pricing and about understanding how to increase demand. They have one house to sell when they're listing a home. They have one property, and there are so many ways to increase the demand, which certainly benefits their seller clients.
Well, if you're going to cut the potential eyeballs in half, that doesn't sound like a
Sounds
very
painful.
good thing. And yet, from the surface, you think, well, I get what they're doing. It's a marketing tool, but it's the opposite.
Exactly. It's less exposure. It's half the exposure,
Yeah,
which is not a marketing tool.
Yeah, I don't, and I know when I'm searching, if I go online and I want to search for properties given any area, I go online, I set it up, and it's usually in whole numbers. It's 600,000 to 700,000 or
Yeah.
500 to 600, and I'm going to miss things that are just under that threshold.
Right.
And you can't blame the buyers. They search and buy in
Exactly.
brackets.
But we can blame the agents, honestly.
Yes.
And so when we work with our buyer clients, we know to do that. So we would never set up a search from 5 to 6 for the very reason that we know that we're missing inventory below the 5 and sometimes above the 6. Above the ceiling is less common, but below the floor is very common. You know, it's a tactic tactic that's used, but it's obviously not effective if, again, you're cutting. That sounded painful, cutting the eyeballs in half. But anyway, if you let's just say reducing the audience, shall we? Yeah,
Reducing the sets of eyeballs.
exactly.
Yeah. While we're on this topic and the idea of, getting valuable advice, I had a conversation with a client of ours who closed on a property last week. Very savvy client, been in the building industry for 50 years. And he said he starts every morning with his cup of coffee by looking online at what's taking place in his market. And his market is just one town. And he said, and I look in that one town every single morning. And I know what's coming on the market because I knew what was there yesterday, and I can manage that town, my market, very easily because I look every day. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? He does what I do or what you do. We know our inventory in the market, and because he's a savvy client, he does it for himself. And yet, what he's looking for there, he's an investor, he's a builder, he's looking for value. And the one thing that he doesn't get from a daily look is he doesn't get an idea, like when you're in a large company like we have. We know what's coming on the market in our company, and there's 400 agents, before it comes on. What's coming on the market with a day's notice, a week's notice in our company. In some cases, we might even get a month's notice. And I thought to myself, there's the value. Mm-hmm. When I see something in the coming soon list when we have our weekly meeting in that town, I'm going to make a call, and I'm going to let him know. I mean, my feeling is that's what value is being able to, because he's a client, and we are agents in the same company. We can share that information with our client, and not breach any clear cooperation policy through the National Association of Realtors. That's the value that all buyers are looking for. Is they want to know before someone else knows what's coming. Because once it's published in any of the portals, the whole world knows.
Universe, maybe even.
Well,
That's what we say.
When we get cross-universal markets, when we break into that, then we're going to be
We're working
really.
on it, aren't we, Bill?
Well,
Get
you go
in touch with Fine Homes
from
Group.
8 billion to who knows how many sets of eyeballs. We really don't know.
So you did mention clear cooperation. I'm not going to elaborate on that,
Yes,
but
please.
it's not something that many consumers necessarily are familiar with. But it is definitely a reason to find an agent who's licensed with a very active brokerage, because there's so much inventory that doesn't hit MLS and therefore doesn't hit the World Wide Web. So if anyone has any questions about that or wants to understand the benefits of working with somebody here at Keller Williams, specifically maybe on the Fine Homes Group, to be in the know about these properties before everybody else knows,
Sure.
they should reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's it for today. Don't forget those important dates for parties and givebacks and feeding of families who really need our help. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.